What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Relso back in the motherfucking building, my nigga. And we're back with more DCKO. How Darseid broke the reality. Yo, shout out my nigga Commisstorian, my nigga. He always be coming with the heat. He always be explaining all the comics. Him and also, what's folks' name again, bro? Commisstorian. Commisstorian also. Wait, did I just say? Yeah, I just said comics. I just said Commisstorian, right? I mean, Comics Explained, bro. Comics Explained always be coming out with the motherfucking heat, bro. R.I.P. Commisstorian, bro. He was a goat in this shit, bro. We're really gonna miss him. And also his reactions and also his... You feel me? You already know. But let's get right into this video.
So
I've been waiting for this shit for a long time, bro.
Universe and the main DC universe, there's one story that we have not covered that may very well be the most important story, right? Darseid breaking time and how it all kind of ties in to everything that's happening. This is Justice League Unlimited.
This shit was heat.
One of the things I need to specify before we get into the story is this story takes place after a previous crossover between Batman Superman World's Finest and Justice League Unlimited called We Are Yesterday. The story is ridiculously convoluted, but the long and short of it is that if you remember the ending of Absolute Power, that various superheroes either lost powers or swapped powers with other people. In We Are Yesterday, Gorilla Grodd in the present day had basically been given the powers of Martian Manhunter and then concocted the scheme to essentially bring the Legion of Doom from the past into the present day in order to destroy the Justice League. This led to Dick Grayson from the past showing up in the present day, kind of a stowaway among these time travel hijinks, and then by touching his present day counterpart, basically set in motion a series of events where time just started getting screwed up. Those issues with time...
Oh shit, they got the Joker who laughs.
What Darseid did. And so as it stands right now, as a result of that storyline, you have a bunch of time-displaced heroes. That's why this story opens up with Harley Quinn attacking the other members of the Justice League. But it's why you also see Abin Sur, you see Batman and Superman who fused during the Devil Amnesia storyline at the beginning of World's Finest.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I haven't read a bunch of these comics, bro. So all the shit that he's saying to me is very new. So just stick with me, bro.
Which I still say is one of the dopest designs ever.
Oh my god!
And Superman, it just looks...
Yo, this is fucking hard, my nigga. I'm not gonna lie. This is hard as shit. This is fucking tough. I'm not gonna lie.
Right, but it's just all these time-displaced heroes. That's why if you go and you read Justice League Unlimited from DCKO right now, you're going to see all these guys.
That
right?
nigga
You're going
looks
to see
like
Guy
Thor.
Gardner back when he was Warrior, right? You're going to see Aquaman back during the 1990s.
Batman Beyond.
Right? All these characters who just kind of seem like they're out of place because they are. They were plucked out of time. And so at the moment, it's everyone trying to figure out what it is that's going on when they're suddenly met by the arrival of Time Trapper and World Forger. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, and we've kind of glossed over World Forger to a degree, he was largely introduced with Perpetua.
His art design is crazy.
You know, death metal, all that kind of crazy stuff. The idea behind it was that it was a reworking of the DC mythology by Scott Snyder. The idea behind it was that the World Forger was exactly what he sounded like, right? He was a being who forged worlds. And if my memory serves me correctly, the idea of the dark multiverse, so like where the Batman Who Laughs and Barbados and, you know, Murder Machine and Red Death, where like all those versions of Batman came from, were basically discarded worlds, right? Worlds that
I'm trying to read this shit at the same time as listening to them.
Supposed to be. And those worlds that were quote unquote proper were sent out into the multiverse. And in fact, the World Forger has created multiple multiverses. That's kind of the level of power this guy has. So it's really just a long-winded way of saying World Forger and Time Trapper are on a whole different level.
Time Trapper's just doomsday in the future,
again,
bro.
At the end of We Are
y'all
Yesterday,
niggas don't know that.
the Justice League captured Gorilla Grodd, if for no other reason than help from Airwave. And Airwave was basically just a younger kid who was inducted into the Justice League Unlimited team because he was a superhero, he wanted to do good things, and he was tricked by Gorilla Grodd into believing that the Justice League were bad guys, and that Airwave was secretly dying, and the Justice League knew it, and it was all kinds of crazy stuff that was going on. The long and short of it is that Airwave assisted in Gorilla Grodd's defeat, but was lost in time, and that'll become important when we kind of move forward in the story. But with Time Trapper and them showing up here, it's really just kind of greeting everybody and to a degree explaining what's going on. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But one of the things this does is it shifts over to Ted Kord and to Mr. Terrific, both versions of him, because there's a version of Terrific from the past who again is in the present day. And the funny thing about it is that they're trying to find Airwave. Now, the reality
y'all niggas keeping up, bro? Because I'm having a hard time. No bullshit. I'm not gonna lie.
But in his mind, if they had spent more time focusing
I'm
on
doing a
Airwave,
good job so far,
teaching
but
him how to become an actual superhero, he never would have been so
still
easily
having a tough
subjected
time
to the manipulations of Gorilla Grodd. So in a lot of ways, it's just kind of Mr. Terrific trying to correct what he considers to be a mistake. The problem with this is they're having the most difficult time locating Airwave, who's just kind of lost out there in the time stream, right? A non-corporeal form. And so because time is literally being screwed up, and initially the Justice League and everybody here believes it's kind of fallout from the actions of Gorilla Grodd, that in this instance, Mr. Terrific from the past is just kind of like, oh, like, I totally get it, right? The answer is so obvious on how to get this guy back, right? And so Terrific from the present is like, okay, like what do you have? And Terrific from the past is just like, it's simple, right? We just have to, and then he disappears before he can give the answer. And like Michael Holt, right? Present day Terrific is just like, we need to what? What do we have to do? Like, he just starts freaking out. It reminds me of that scene from The Brave and the Mold from Tom King's Batman run, where Swamp Thing tricks Batman into helping him by telling Bruce that nobody ever really dies and that basically they can bring his parents back. And then at the end, right, once Swamp Thing gets what he wants, then he's like, no, your parents are dead. Like, there's no way to save them. And Batman's just like losing his shit.
Swamp Thing's a piece of shit for that shit. What the fuck?
Right? Just like totally going bananas. It was hilarious.
First off, why would this nigga let Swamp Thing in his fucking crib, gang? So does Swamp Thing know that Bruce Wayne is Batman?
It's one of the funniest moments. When, like,
Alfred over there
Swamp
just
Thing
sweeping like nothing's going
Batman.
on, bro.
But
Come
again,
on, Alfred.
Kind of jumping back to what's going
Slap
on
some
in
shit
the
in the
here and
Bruce,
now.
bro.
An entire
Please.
coming together of all these different superheroes. In some ways, they are aware of who Time Trapper is, insofar as he is Doomsday.
At the
A
end
lot
of
of them
time,
don't
it has
know
been said
who
that
Wolf
everything
Forger
dies,
is,
but
simply
we
because
both
they have
know
not
that it's not
progressed
true.
along
You
their
don't recall.
time
Superman
in
is
the
forever.
universe
I am
to where
forever.
they've
Our
met them,
conflict
right?
would
So
never
basically,
end.
the whole Dark Knight storyline hasn't come to fruition for these guys. And so that's why you have Firestorm, who looks at Wally and is just like, is that Doomsday? And Wally's like, so Superman says he's evolved, calls himself the Time Trapper now, and obviously Doomsday is a bad guy. The other one is Alpheus, the brother of the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. Good guy, relatively speaking. And my understanding
who
is
is this
they
nigga,
could
bro?
all just flatten us with a
This
spoon,
nigga looks
so
like Thor.
tread carefully, right? These guys don't know what's going on. They have no real understanding of what's actually transpiring here.
Where's
But one of the
Aquaman?
things that Time Trapper says is he says, unless provoked, we do not seek battle. We are here because unless we act now, all of time will unravel. And the World Forger builds on that. And he says, as I was the builder of this universe, it is my job to maintain its integrity. The Omega energy Grodd has tampered with is now growing, infesting all
These
areas.
niggas are
We
giants.
fear you are unaware of its potency. Now, the challengers comment on this, right? And they say, oh, we're well aware. For a while, it ran directly through us challengers, and that was fun, right? Old news. And so it just says, like, old news, right? Is that all you have? Now, the challengers of the unknown are finicky in DC Comics. Technically, they've been around since 1957.
Damn.
There's a long-running theory that's
Old
been
as
going
shit,
on
bitch.
for decades and decades and decades. And I read this on a website, and I can't remember what the link to the website is, but the idea behind this theory is that while the Challengers of the Unknown were created by Jack Kirby, when Jack Kirby went over to Marvel Comics alongside Stan Lee and basically created the Fantastic Four, that what they did is they took the concept of the Challengers from Showcase number 6 and reworked it into the Fantastic Four. It's been a theory that's been going on for years and years and years and years and years. But the fact is, right, the Fantastic Four and the Challengers are very similar in terms of their purpose, but the effects of manipulation in the time stream keep hitting. So much so that, like, people start to believe that it really is the fault of Grodd, right? The aftershocks of everything that he had done. And so that's why the World Forger is like, okay, so here's the thing. We might be able to stop this, but we'll know for certain once we vivisect Grodd. And Grodd's just like, what? Like, not a chance. That's never going to happen. You are not going to vivisect me
Elastic
in order
Man.
to understand how my Omega...
Yo, did y'all niggas know this nigga could fuck Superman up easily, bro? Well, not easily, but he could fuck Superman up, like real shit, bro. Like this nigga will probably beat Superman 5 out of 10 times, 50% of the time,
energy use
maybe more than
is
that,
tying into everything that's going on here.
depending on what comic, who's writing the comic,
by Darseid.
what
And
universe
they
it
say
is.
that, right? Like, for the most part, the superhero community is split, right? On one hand, they're just like, look, we can't
Batman
do
and
that,
Superman
right? That's a pretty
fusion is
crappy
crazy.
thing to do. But then, like, Abin Sur is just kind of like, look, I mean, you do what you got to do, right? Like, we do what we must do to return home. Otherwise, we may have no...
Yo, y'all niggas see the logo? This might be the hardest logo I ever seen. No bullshit. And the mask is OD. It's the cream on top. Pause.
Home to return to. And one of the things a World Forger says is Abin Sur...
I gotta say pause because y'all niggas make everything sus, bro.
Disconnected from the multiverse. It is thus a sealed system that contains all permutations of Omega energy and prevents it from ravaging the rest of existence. Now, again, one of the things that we've mentioned in multiple videos up to this point, but in case you missed it, at the end of Absolute Power, in order to defeat Amanda Waller and prevent her from basically bringing in an army of various villains and heroes and so on from alternate realities, the Flash, Barry Allen, quite literally had to sever the main DC universe from the rest of the multiverse, hence the reason why it's cut off. But again, the World Forger continues on, right? He says, reined in as it is, however, Omega acts as a cancer, gradually eating away at the laws of reality, including, as the Time Trapper and I separately discovered, the flow of time. And that's why Trapper chimes in and he says, Grodd's body retains vestiges of Omega that must be physically extracted and studied if we are to find a counterbalance before everything unravels. And so that's where the effects of time keep getting screwed up even further. So much so that time is actually shifting back and forth, quite literally moving forward and moving backwards, which is why they start saying their words backwards. Actions start going in reverse. It's just kind of jogging back and forth. People start shifting through their various forms. Supergirl, for example, starts shifting through the various versions of herself that have existed throughout the entirety of the DC time stream, because one of the things to keep in mind is that at the end of like the whole death metal and the Darkest Night and all that kind of stuff, right, the defeat of Perpetua, there are no more crises reset events in the DC universe. Everything is now in continuity. Everything that's happened from Crisis on Infinite Earths all the way up to now has happened, right? It's not as though it's like when the New 52 launched and it reset time and it's like nothing between 1986, right? The end of Crisis on Infinite Earths going up to like the launch of New 52 was wiped from existence. No, it's all there now, right? It's all intact. So Superman dying exactly the way that you read it in The Death of Superman from like 1992, that's in continuity. And so one of the things that happens here is that Gorilla Grodd actually kind of tells everybody,
wait, that shit was made in 1992? Damn! I wasn't even born yet. That's crazy, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that show was made in the 2000s, early 2000s.
Guaranteed to get the information that
like
you
2009.
Says, but to devalue me in this crisis is a grave error. You wish to understand the power of Omega. Which of us has looked into its heart? Which of us has felt it coursate through every fiber of his being and lived to tell the tale? I agree. Omega is infinitely destructive, but to properly tame it, you need my knowledge more than you do a lab specimen, which is an accurate statement. It is a true statement. Only Grodd truly understands how to manipulate and control Omega energy. Everything else is just kind of doing whatever you can to understand it. So there's no guarantee that if they did kill him and they did harness the Omega energy that was within his body, that they would even know how to use it effectively enough to bring an end to like everything the Darkseid's doing and basically transforming Earth and screwing up all time throughout the universe. And so as a small little aside here, you do ultimately pick up with Mr. Terrific restoring Airwave. It really comes down to Terrific with a bit of coaching from Ted Kord, coming to the realization that he's so emotionally invested, he's not really able to function at peak capacity, because now he's really kind of tainted by sentimentality, and that Mr. Terrific functions at his best when he just focuses on cold hard facts and ignores everything else. And so once he's able to do that, they essentially develop a kind of energy-based tuning fork, which is a signal that Airwave can latch onto and figure out, hey, they're over there, right? So basically it's Mr. Terrific yelling into the ether. But what he realizes is that simply creating a tuning fork doesn't matter. That what he needs to do is emit the right message. And so he quite literally apologizes to Airwave. Hey, we let you down. We didn't train you the way that we should have. We didn't teach you the way that we should have. And because of that, you were susceptible to the manipulations of Gorilla Grodd. We apologize and we need you. And of course, that leads to Airwave basically reaching out and then being restored. But more so than that, one of the things that you do, because what had kind of been happening throughout all of this, the meeting with Time Trapper and the World Forger and all these heroes, is that the present day versions of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were gone. The Trinity was nowhere to be seen. And so this leads to them traveling to the original headquarters of the Justice League of America, right? Like way back in The Brave and the Bold from like 1958.
Damn!
When it all basically first came together. And one of the reasons why they're meeting here is because Batman's called everybody together. One of the things that he kind of presents here is this argument that when it came to Airwave and how easily he was manipulated, that it really was due to the fact that the Justice League basically expanded its roster too far too fast. That from Batman's perspective, Superman was too trusting. And that was kind of the
Superman is always the problem, bro.
Unlimited. It was basically Superman
always
saying, hey,
trusting
you're
niggas.
A hero, you've done some good stuff.
So I don't fuck with Superman like that, bro.
Team. That was it. Now, it's not to say he was just handing them out willy-nilly, right? I mean, they're not Coca-Cola cards from the 1990s, but it is one of these instances where from Batman's perspective, Superman wasn't really doing his due diligence. Because yes, he was giving them to heroes, so they didn't really have to worry about some inside man willingly turning against them or some villain tricking Superman into believing that he had somehow, turned himself into a good guy, reformed when he really hadn't. Instead, Batman's presenting this argument where he's saying, we were bringing people onto the Justice League who were not equipped to be there. They just hadn't dealt with those kinds of threats. They hadn't worked their way up the roster, right? The Teen Titans or something like that, and then eventually becoming a part of the league because we know they're capable of handling world-class threats, right? Threats not only to Earth, but to the very fabric of reality itself. And Airwave was one of those, right? He was brand new to the world. He didn't know what he was doing, and he had no business being on the league. And so as a result of that, there is a kind of disagreement, because from Superman's perspective, this is a learning experience, but it's a learning experience insofar as now they can teach Airwave what he needs to know, both through his own experience as well as what the Justice League can bestow on him on how to become a more capable hero and to be prepared for threats like this. From Batman's perspective, it's a learning experience in the sense of we can't be this willy-nilly when it comes to bringing people in. And so he's just kind of like
facts, though.
Red Tornado, right? Literally a living computer. We have the ability to run these in-depth background checks on all these people who want to become members of the league. But for Superman, it shows a blatant distrust.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. Didn't you give Jason Todd a Robin costume? Yeah, I'm done with this nigga Superman, bro. This nigga's really trying to disrespect niggas now. Niggas really trying to disrespect niggas now, bro. You really gonna go there, my nigga? You really gonna go there?
The superhero community. You have to trust them in the same way they trust you. So it's kind of that classic disagreement, right, between Batman and Superman. Superman trusts people, albeit without being naive, and Batman doesn't trust anybody. Batman doesn't even trust his own shadow. But the other problem
I don't either.
One of the things that we've kind of talked about in other videos is that Time Trapper.
That's probably why I agree with Batman so much.
This was Time Trapper when he was attacked between the moment that he disappeared alongside World Forger and Gorilla Grodd at the end of Justice League Unlimited number 9 and his reappearance. Specifically, he was attacked by the Absolute Universe's Legion of Superheroes. We covered that in the Superman story, the DC KO one-shot, and the DC All-In one-shot. The long and short of this is that they almost killed him to the point that like he's about to die. And it was really a show of force from DC to illustrate how capable and how deadly the Absolute Universe's version of the Legion of Superheroes are, and by extension, how Absolute Batman, how Absolute Superman, Wonder Woman, how those guys would compare to their main DC Universe counterparts. I mean, we all know the main DC Universe Batman would dominate the Absolute Universe Batman, and that's not even up for debate. But the fact is, right, it really was just kind of a demonstration of how capable that team was. And so in the face of all of this, every time anyone walks up and tries to perform any kind of work on Time Trapper to try to basically save his life, because of the fact that he is living time, it literally speeds them up. It ages them rapidly. Now, it only happens so long as they touch them.
Damn,
that
Barry.
example, of course, coming with The Flash, where Wally West just like ages up to an old man. Now, when he's pulled off by Steele's niece, right, John Henry Irons' niece, of course, he reverts back to his normal form. But that's when they realize they need someone who can basically perform surgery on Time Trapper and save his life without succumbing to the effects of Time Trapper's time manipulation abilities. The other problem that's going on here is, as we had talked about at the beginning of DCKO, there are fire pits opening across the world. Now, because of the fact that we've already talked about that in DCKO, we can kind of cover it here. I don't really think it offers much in the way of spoilers. One of the things that's basically going on, right, kind of the big thing that we were learning, the source of the Omega energy that's permeating Earth, everything outside of Earth, and gradually spreading throughout the universe, is not Gorilla Grodd. He simply just tapped into an energy source that was already there. The energy source is in the heart of Earth, and it was placed there by Darseid in order to turn Earth into a new apocalypse. At the end of the day, that's seemingly his grand scheme. In the DC All-In Special, right, basically the beginning of this whole crossover between the Absolute Universe and the main DC Universe, Darkseid realized he had to be killed so that he could basically be quote-unquote resurrected or return as essentially a god. And when that happened, he corrupted an alternate reality and turned it into the Absolute Universe. But the whole point behind doing that was to twist that universe, turn it inside out, and basically create his own army based on the counterparts of superheroes who exist in the main DC universe. So he could lead that army to Earth and destroy the superheroes. Why? Because the main DC universe is the itch he's never been able to scratch. It's the universe he's never been able to conquer, and Darkseid's always wanted to. And what greater prize than to turn Earth into the new apocalypse, the new kingdom on which Darkseid will sit with
sick.
His throne and rule all of creation with his newfound godly power, and having finally conquered the one place he's never been able to take over. And so that's what you're seeing here. It's quite literally Earth being terraformed by the heart of Omega energy stored within the Earth's core. So fire pits opening up, the place is beginning to look like apocalypse. The other part of this is that in Justice League Unlimited issue number 2, you basically ended up coming across a parademon of Darkseid that had the ability to talk, and then it just kind of lingered in the background. Nothing ever happened with that parademon, right? It was just there. But now it becomes important because Michael Holt goes and visits it and says, okay, with everything that's happening right now, right, Omega energy and the whole 9 yards, there's something going on here, right? Darkseid and Omega energy are intertwined irrevocably. And so literally Mr. Terrific asks him, right? He says, I'm sorry to hear that you are in pain, but you are one of Darkseid's parademons, the only one smart enough for speech, and we cannot simply release you. I don't know why you're hurting, but ever since Darkseid died, sinister things have been happening everywhere. Tell me what you know. Shed any light you can, and we will try to help. And that's what the parademon just tells him, right? You cannot, for I have come to realize something. For many of your years, I was guarding parademon eggs. I believed it to be my singular destiny. But now, I know Lord Darkseid put me on your world for a second purpose. And Mr. Terrific asks him, what is it? And this guy just says, incubation, and unleashes an army of parademons in the middle of the Justice League Watchtower. And it's like the worst case scenario for them to deal with, because parademons are incredibly capable. They're incredibly powerful, so much so that depending on what universe you're talking about, for example, Tom Taylor's Earth 2, at the beginning of the New 52, they can overpower and subdue Superman like they did in that alternate reality and turn him into a parademon. So it's kind of wild. And so again, at that point, you jump back to Time Trapper, and with him just kind of laying there, right, basically unconscious and essentially dying with a hole in his chest, that what the Justice League has done is they've called in a couple different people. The first one is Dr. Niles Calder of the Doom Patrol, which for those of you guys who don't know anything about the Doom Patrol, again, the Doom Patrol, the X-Men, they share a lot of similarities, right? So almost to a degree, consider this guy like the Professor X of DC, or consider consider Professor X to be the Dr. Niles of Marvel, right? Depending on, how you want to square that circle. But the bigger point here is that Martian Manhunter says, I will create a telepathic link between Dr. Calder and our surgeon while sharing what my X-ray vision sees inside Trapper's body. And that's when you find out the world-class surgeon they've brought in to take care of Time Trapper is Metamorpho. Woe betide the poor soul that this guy's gonna operate on. Truth to tell though, Metamorpho, right, Rex, he's just becoming a good guy, right? Rex Mason has been a good guy for quite some time. He has one of the most tragic stories of anybody in DC. He's kind of the living embodiment of Al Pacino in The Godfather 3, right? Every time I try to get out, the villains pull me back in, right? That's kind of his story, right? It's really, really tragic. But there's some cool elements in this, because in the midst of all of this, Jefferson Pierce, right, Black Lightning is just kind of like, okay, so Metamorpho is the only one available who's not built of flesh and blood anymore. He's purely elemental. Oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, those things do not age. And that's where Metamorpho is like, so theoretically, neither will I. At least, we'll see, right? But he says, tough hide, but I can cut through the wound. And he says, feed me, John Jones, where do I go first? And so because John Jones is a connection with Dr. Niles basically guides him through how to heal Time Trapper. The issue is that in the midst of all of this, the parademons are manifesting from the cell of the parademon who can talk. And so now, not only are they dealing with everything going on and trying to keep Time Trapper alive, they now have to contend with these parademons that are invading the Justice League Watchtower and will try to kill everyone, and as quick as they grow, will probably be successful in doing it. And so what ends up happening in this kind of like race against time is Michael Holt comes up with an idea, right? He says, okay, it's the nature of the Time Trapper to manipulate the very fabric of time itself. Anyone who touches him rapidly ages and dies. And so with the Watchtower quite literally falling apart at the seams due to everything that's going on, Mr. Terrific contacts Rex Mason and the Flash. And that's when you find out that Metamorpho is being affected by what's going on, right? Like, literally, the Flash is like, Rex, fill me in. Like, how are things going? And Metamorpho just says, like, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm supposed to be immune to time, but even carbon has a half-life, so I'm basically racing the clock here. And he's starting to wake up, but I'm almost there. But in the midst of all that, Terrific is like, Rex, stop. And Metamorpho is just like, wait, Terrific, is that you? And like, literally, Michael just says, Rex, whatever you do not revive the Trapper. And Flash is like, are you kidding, right? And like, literally, Terrific's like, pause for 2 seconds. Flash, meet me at the epicenter where these parademons are emerging. And Flash is like, I mean, like, the whole of the Watchtower, right? Like, the hull is breached. Like, we're literally losing oxygen here. Folks are dying. And that's where Holt is just like, trust me, do what I tell you to do. So the Flash races over to Michael Holt and he just says, Flash, now, right? Push them into the Trapper's temporal field. And pushing all of the parademons in there, they immediately age rapidly. Not only that, it's enough to revive the Time Trapper. And in turn, he just says, enough, right? Literally just wakes up and it's just like, we're done. Not only that, he basically repairs the entirety of the Justice League Watchtower, but Flash isn't really letting him off that quick. In fact, he says, Trapper, you don't get to make nice just by repairing the damage that you caused. Steel and Metamorpho are still in a bad way. Why did you come here? Because you came crashing into this place and destroyed part of the Watchtower. And that's where the Trapper just says to deliver a message, but I see that in 4.2 seconds, someone else will convey it. And that's where you end up getting this broadcast. Priority Omega Alert. Threat level is off the charts. Contact every single available member of the Justice League. And it's Superman. He says, tell everyone to come to the Watchtower now. Now, what's going on here? Okay, we covered this in the Superman comic, but the long and short of it is that he was on a mission with Superboy Prime to rescue Booster Gold, who had traveled to the Absolute Universe when it was first discovered by the superheroes on Earth, and he was immediately subdued by the Absolute Legion of Doom. Superman and Booster escaped with their lives. They barely made it out by the skin of their teeth. It was bonkers. So this ending and the ending of that storyline for Superman actually end the exact same way. I'll have the whole playlist for everything with like DCKO leading up to it. I'll have that down in the description, and I'll have it as like a pinned comment at the top so you guys can easily access it. So you guys will see what I'm talking about. But this is how everything kind of connects together, right? So this sets us up for Justice League Unlimited and the DCKO event, which this should have us completely caught up with everything you need to know to understand what's happening right now in DC Comics. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later.
Yeah, that was a good ass video, bro.
So,
that was a good ass video, bro. Let me know down in the comment section if y'all fuck with DCKO or if y'all don't. I tried to keep up. Some shit I'm lost on, but majority of stuff, bro, shit, I get it. I'm not gonna lie, I get majority of stuff, bro, because I'm a geek too, bro. So let me know down in the comment section if y'all fucking with DCKO or not.